Hello students, I want to show you how we're doing some things for this project. Once you complete this practice, you'll have a sewing badge. So the first thing you are learning to do is thread a needle. I'm holding the yarn, in this case, up to the eye of the needle, and I'm trying to just force through a little bit of fuzz, enough so that I can pinch onto the tips with my other hand. This is merely an exercise of patience. So I finally got some fuzz through and I pinched it with my other hand. And now I'm pulling that needle all the way to the middle of the yarn. We're going to use double thick yarn like this, so it's kind of a big circle. Now we need to tie a knot in the end. I make a hook shape first. Then, keeping a nice big loop, I overlap and it becomes a little curl. Now, I take those ends and I put them through the back and up through the hole that I just made. Then, I take both ends and pull it nice and tight. You can start sewing your practice card. We always start from the back. This is so those tails and the knot is hiding in the back. I came up, and now I'm going to check the back and make sure the knot is looking exactly how I want it. To do a running stitch, you go back down into the next hole and then return from the back to the front. This makes kind of a nice little dashed line. And when you look at a stuffed animal or a craft that has a dashed line, this is the kind of stitch that was done. It's something that shows when something was hand sewn, and people like to see it as a detail. So we're going to speed up a little bit. The one thing that might go wrong while you're doing this kind of stitch is you might forget to come back from the direction you were going, in which case it wraps around the side of your fabric or card. And then you just have to go back where you came from to undo it. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating a solid stitch. And you might do this on the hem of our pillow creature, where I'm going back, but I'm going the opposite direction so that all those spaces get filled in. I'd like to see you try this solid stitch, turning your running stitch into a solid line. So basically any place your yarn or thread was on top, it is now also underneath. And it looks like a solid line from both above and below, and it's a very strong edge if you're sewing two pieces together. The next thing we're going to do is a blanket stitch. This is something that makes the edges of something look very finished and put together. People also use this for bookmaking. So you're going to go through a hole, and you're going to continue with that direction the whole time. So since I went down here, I'm going to keep going down the rest of the time. And I pull the thread through, but instead of pulling it all the way through, last minute, I hook into that door. It's like someone getting onto the elevator last minute. I'll call this the elevator last minute blanket stitch. So you're making a stitch, you're pulling it through, but then right at the last minute before that last yarn, I'm gonna pull it through again. I'm not really liking that, so I'm going to undo it in a little bit and see how I can make it better. That straight thread should rest right on the spine or the edge of my work.
Yeah.
So I'm going through the front each
I love
time.
these stools. It's so silly though.
And then I'm going to come up
to fall off of them.
and catch that out of the elevator right before the door closes. Here I decide I'm going to do it from the side, go down through that elevator right before it closes. I'm coming up through the back and going through the elevator each time it closes. However you do a blanket stitch, you do it the same each time. Here I did it up through the back and then out through the elevator door. And this starts to look better once I get a rhythm. So that's a blanket stitch. I'd like to see you try a blanket stitch. You can cut off the extra long parts of a tail. And now this is showing how once you have shown me your sewing card, I would like you to remove all of the yarn from the sewing card by backtracking or snipping it off. It kind of helps train your hands for sewing to unsew. So after you show me your card, you're going to take all of your yarn back out of the card carefully and clear it off for the next person to practice. Thanks.